girl named Angelina. This is a story about something that happened to Angelina on her summer vacation when she was 7 years old. You remember the town that Angelina lived in? What was the name of the town? Poughkeepsie, New York. We saw a girl today that got baptized was from Poughkeepsie, and I was kind of wondering if she knew Angelina. Maybe she did. But also, Melody was telling me something that she saw in Littis that reminded me of something that happened to Angelina. I'm going to tell you about it real quick. When Angelina was didn't have school in the summer, she used to like to play with her friends. And one of the things that her friends always liked to do with Angelina is they liked to ride bikes. And remember the time that she tried to get Skippy to pull her on a bike like Uncle Travis used to do with his dog Sandy, and that ended in tears? Well, she wasn't allowed to do that anymore, but she would go out for a ride almost every day. And her friend Kathy and her friend Beth, and she had a couple of boys, Charlie and Donnie, would come over sometimes and they'd ride bikes. And they'd go down to the park and they'd go to the candy store and they'd ride around in the parking lot. And sometimes Angelina's mother would give them some money and they could go to a movie in the afternoon. And once in a while they'd go to the community pool, but they were allowed to ride their bikes. See, it was way different then. They were allowed to ride their bikes anywhere they wanted. One morning they got up kind of early, and you remember the name of the street that they lived on? It was 123 Gardner Street. Very good, very good. Well, they had a neighbor on one street over. Mr. Westcott was his name, and Mr. Westcott, unfortunately, his wife died 2 years ago, and ever since then he kind of went off. You could tell he wasn't right in his head. And he used to, one day he stopped driving his car. He either walked, or he took the bus, or he took his bicycle everywhere he went. And Angelina, and he used to ride his bicycle to work. And he worked, and it was about a half-an-hour bike ride. But what he did, he'd always put on his gym clothes, and then he would ride his bicycle to work. And then he had a place like where he kept clothes, he carried clothes with him, where he could take a shower and he could change. He worked in a big department store. He was some kind of manager. But anyway, Mr. Westcott was kind of a big, heavy guy, and he was kind of hairy. And when it was hot out, he used to wear like kind of his like a shirt I was wearing, like just an athletic shirt and gym shorts. But the shirt was kind of too small for him, and the shorts were kind of tight on him. So when he got on his bicycle seat, you could see his butt crack. And Angelina and her friends, they used to tease him. They liked Mr. Westcott. He was nice, and they felt sorry for him. But they used to call him the Heiny-Ho man. And they used to sing a little song about Mr. Westcott when they see him riding his bike. And they'd go, Heiny-Ho, Heiny-Ho, it's off to work I go. But one day, they were going to ride their bikes, and they saw Mr. Westcott, and he was going around the corner, and he was wearing his gym shorts, and he was already all sweaty. He'd already ridden about a mile, and they could see his butt crack and his big hairy ass. And they started singing the song. Only he heard him. He stopped his bike and jammed on the brakes, and he said, "What you say? What you say?" And they said, well, we were just singing a song. Are you making fun of me? He said, "No, sir, we're not." He said, "I better never see you on this street again." He said, "I don't want you taking remarks about the way I look or the way I ride my bike or where I'm going or what I'm doing. Have I made myself perfectly clear?" And Angelina got a little bit sassy, and she said, "I don't think you can tell me what to do." And he said, "What's your name, young lady?" And she said, "My name is Angelina Goodwin. And my father is Frank Goodwin, and he's the director of fleet maintenance for the town of Poughkeepsie. And who are you?" And he said, "Well, my name is Stuart Westcott, and I live on the west side." He said, "I'm riding my bike to work, and I don't need to hear insults from a cracky-mouthed little girl like you. So they got into this big screaming match. And then pretty soon it escalated, and the neighbors were watching, and finally somebody called the cops. Mr. Westcott got so excited when he started talking. You know people when they get excited, he started spitting, and he was screaming at Angelina. Well, then they called Angelina's mother, And Angelina's mother got into the act, and she wasn't afraid to drop a few words. Well, I can't say all the words that she said, but it included the F-bomb, and it got pretty ugly. But pretty soon, they got everybody calmed down, and Angelina said, look, you're not supposed to make fun of people. If you said something wrong to Mr. Westcott, I want you to go here and apologize. So Angelina didn't want to do it, but she knew her mother was right. So she went over, and Mr. Westcott was sitting in the police car with the air conditioner running, mopping his head. And she said, Mr. Westcott, she said, what do you want? She said, I apologize. She said, I was rude to you, sir. I'm very, very sorry, and I'm asking that you would forgive me. And his face broke out into a big smile. He said, well, thank you very much. He said, I'm sorry I lost my temper, and I'm sorry I shouted at you. So why don't we just agree to put this incident behind us, and let's try to be friendly to each other. And Angelina said, okay. So every time they saw Mr. Westcott riding his bike, even though he had a big hairy butt and his butt crack was showing, they never laughed, they never said anything bad. They always said, good morning, Mr. Westcott. And he always said, good morning, Angelina, good morning, Donnie, good morning, Charlie. And a neat thing happened. They got to be real good friends. And one Christmas, the next Christmas, because Mr. Westcott lived all by himself after his wife died, he didn't have any children, they invited him over to their house for Christmas dinner. And when Mr. Westcott went into the great beyond, a few years later he got sick and died, had a heart attack, he left all his money to the public library. And they built a wing on the library, and Angelina loved to read, you know. So every time she went, a wing is like an addition to the library. They went, in addition, it's like a room that they made the library bigger, and they put more books. And they got the kind of books that Angelina and her friends liked. So they always remembered Mr. Westcott, and then they would go to the library on rainy days in the summer, and they'd get a whole bunch of books. And they'd come back to Angelina's house, or maybe somebody else's house, and they would sit around and read books and drink sodas. And one day, they went to Angelina's house, and Angelina's mother said, look, she said, I just got to run down to the store for 10 minutes. I want you girls to just sit here in the living room and read your books and don't do anything bad. So they said, okay, and they were reading, but pretty soon they got to thinking about all the things that they could be doing, and it was raining real hard. So they decided that they were going to go outside and just play in the puddles in the street. They just like you guys do. They like to stomp in puddles.
Afterwards.
What's that?
Afterwards.
Well, yeah, but they didn't want to wait that long. They were out there when it was raining, and they were stomping in the puddles. But they didn't let Skippy outside because they figured, well, if he went out and got wet, then the mother would know that they had been out, and their plan was to just go out for a few minutes. Well, Donnie was over. Donnie was a troublemaker. He just always, no matter what happened, Donnie can mess up cornflakes. And he was out there stomping in the puddle. He was going like this with his foot. Stomp, 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 stomp. And guess what happened? His foot got stuck in the storm grate. It's one of those little, like in front of your house where the drain goes. It's got a little grate. And he had his sneaker on, and his foot got stuck in there. He started howling like a stuffed pig, and he's going, ah, ah! And at first, Angelina and her friends thought that he was just kidding. So they started making fun of him. And they said, Donnie's going to get sucked down the sewer. Donnie's going to get sucked down the sewer. And in the meantime, it's pouring rain, and they're soaking wet, and they're all laughing at him. And he's like, no, my foot's stuck, my foot's stuck. And then they started teasing him. They said, well, I guess we're going to have to cut it off. And then Mrs. Goodwin came back with the car, and buddy, she was hot. She was mad. She got out of the car, and she hollered like crazy. And she's like, what are you people doing? What are you people doing? I told you not to go out there. You're soaking wet. You're all cut. He said, no, look, Donnie's out there. He got his foot stuck. So she got real excited. She had to call the Public Works Department. They had to come with a special machine. They tried to grate out. And in the meantime, Skippy was in the house. He's going ballistic, and he's going. And when they saw the Public Works truck come up, he thought it was Mr. Goodwin, but it wasn't. And they blew the siren, and they had the lights on, and they got Donnie's foot unstuck. So they went back inside, and Mrs. Goodwin, after she got calmed down, she made him hot chocolate. But the whole time, Skippy was running around going. He got so excited, guess what he did? Peed on the rug. The end.